You are back in the smoke-filled room. This is episode 18. Guys, we have a legal podcast now. At 18, this podcast now can vote in general elections. This podcast can, start an independent life. I mean, in the state of Illinois, it could have gotten an abortion without parental consent like 12 years ago. But what else can our podcast do at 18? I mean, we're a legal adult, guys. This is exciting.
Still can't buy smokes. Still can't buy booze.
True.
So what does it matter?
You can buy fireworks in other states, just not in this state because we don't trust you with fireworks. We trust you with an abortion at like 13, but we don't trust you with fireworks.
13? Yeah. Try one.
All right, you guys, I'm Colin Corbett. You got my political team here with us yet again. Abby, Chris, John, Matt, Michael, all five are with us yet again today. Thanks, guys, for joining us. We've got a big episode to get into. We're going to yet again do the non-campaign updates and then just do a quick run-through of the campaign updates because there is a gajillion campaign updates here, and that's after having cut out like half of them. But there's a few topics I want to go into that I think are going to be interesting for our audience, for our viewers, for our listeners. The first is I can man up. I can admit when I'm wrong. Every other person on this podcast predicted the Packers were going to win last weekend. I said the Bears were going to win. I will say I predicted that they'd bring back Mini Ditka, and that's why they would win. And they didn't bring back Mini Ditka, which was their fatal flaw. Aside from that, the Packers were dominant in every regards, and the Bears were completely outcoached. So if anybody wants to gloat about getting the pick right and me getting it wrong, go ahead.
Go Pack, go. I heard Bears fans talk so much trash the last 6 months, and it was one of the greatest football games I've ever seen. Beautiful.
Greatest? I mean, it was kind of a crappy game, so I don't know how you could call it one of the greatest games you've ever seen.
I mean, Bears losing by a gajillion points? Yeah, that was a pretty good game.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty clear to me. Yeah, I don't think the talent disparity is that large between these two teams, but you could tell the coaching disparity was. I like Eberflus. I want to give the guy a chance, but to me, the Packers were prepared for that game. The Bears were not. Justin Fields looked like he'd been told for months never leave the pocket. So anytime there wasn't even an opening, he was afraid to go for it. They didn't trust him to throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field, which to me says, why the hell did you keep the guy if you don't trust him to throw the ball? Like this was on the coaching staff to me more than the players, and I usually blame the players, but in this case, the Bears were completely outcoached in that game.
You know, it's kind of like being a Republican in Illinois. You have to be completely delusional to think that your team has any chance in winning.
Wow, I wish your depressing point wasn't completely accurate, but let's stick on the Bears because there are some Bears updates on the stadium. It looks like the Bears are pumping the brakes a little bit on a move out to the suburbs. They've been talking up their talks with Brandon Johnson the last couple of weeks, actually more than a month at this point. We just haven't had time to talk about it. They announced this week that they would not be pursuing legislation during the fall veto session to facilitate their move to the suburbs. Doesn't mean it's dead, but it does look like couple things. One, a course correct here, because it looks like Chicago has, with a new mayor, has been a lot more willing to have a conversation with the Bears. The local school districts in Arlington Heights have really screwed up a lot of things here for the Bears' interest in coming out here. And they've recognized that getting a bill passed in Springfield to facilitate a move to the suburbs was highly unlikely to happen, at least not with more serious negotiations. So a lot of things you see happening here, but I think everyone agrees that it does seem like the Bears are done with the ready, shoot, aim sort of a process here, and they're actually being a bit more deliberate, which is probably a good thing. But it definitely looks like this whole process is slowing down. Anybody have thoughts on the Bears in their stadium search?
I hope they do it because as somebody who was at the game Sunday night, getting out of there was a nightmare. And I predict moving out to the suburbs might make going to and from that stadium a little bit easier.
I mean, even if they find another site in Chicago, honestly, just getting off that current site, everyone agrees where they are now doesn't work.
You know, as long as they end up somewhere and they build a dome, that's all that matters to me. Because if you build that dome stadium, you can have Super Bowls, Final Fours for basketball, college football national championships. The economic development opportunity that can arise if you just build a dome stadium is, the sky's the limit with it. That's the only thing that they should not screw up here and just put a dome on it. That's all I really care about.
And if they have a dome, then they can put in the artificial turf. So that way, if Aaron Rodgers ever comes back, he could get injured again on the artificial turf, and everybody wins.
Yeah, listen, go ahead, Abby.
Well, what leverage do the Bears have to make a move? Like we just talked about, the product on the field is garbage. it doesn't look like it's getting better anytime soon. So, like, what negotiating leverage do they have at this point? Same as the White Sox. We talked about that.
Chris, we were all talking about football before we started recording, and Chris hit a big point. Bears fans are delusional. It doesn't matter how bad the product in the field is. We still are dumb enough to go to the games. It's still a massive economic driver. You're right that they have limited leverage, but they don't have no leverage. They're a massive economic driver. I mean, what's the you guys might know this offhand. What's their ranking in terms of their worth of all NFL franchises? Let me see if I can look it up real quick. Fourth, behind the Patriots, Rams, and Giants. I thought the Cowboys were higher than this. This is according to a Forbes list. I don't know how much I trust it. There's another list that says they're fifth. Anyways, fifth or fourth on the list. That's still a pretty good valuation. Talking about $5-6 billion. So I think any town would kill to have them. It's not like the White Sox where they have literally no leverage because they have 7 fans who go to games. At least people still go to Bears games even when we stink.
Yeah. It sounds like they're more delusional than Lions fans, which is a pretty high bar.
Yeah. I mean, I guess since your team's looking really dang good, we'll give you 13 seconds to talk about the Lions. Go ahead.
Oh, man. It was so nice to be on primetime and not look super embarrassing and beat the Chiefs. I don't know how many more seconds do I got. It doesn't matter that Travis
and that's
Kelce
it. Oliver's done talking about the Lions. Let's move on to our next topic. Speaking of dumpster fires and horrible sports franchises, the Chicago White Sox continue to make me wonder why the heck I'm a fan of this team. I saw Chris roll his eyes too. I mean, I don't know if you've seen, Chris, this week, the ADA lawsuit against the White Sox. I don't know if there's any merit to it. But I can tell you that earlier in the year when I went to a game, there was somebody in a wheelchair complaining because it took them 30 minutes to get into the stadium. Like this team, this franchise, I wasn't surprised to see this lawsuit because it's just from top to bottom. They have completely given up. And I don't know if you have any insight on this lawsuit at all. We're all just kind of learning about it the last couple of days.
Yeah, it's another debacle over at 35th and Shields. It seems like the lawsuit is about whether or not disabled people are able to purchase season tickets at the same rate that, or the same ability to do so as regular, season ticket holders and all that kind of stuff. They're not really looking for money out of this. They just want the White Sox to change their policy. Jerry's a stubborn man. I don't even know if he'll give in for this, but I certainly hope he does because it's an issue that we can all get behind, that disabled people should have the same ability to go watch the White Sox lose as the rest of us.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, a good sports franchise, a team with a good PR wing, and any entity that has a good PR arm never lets it get to this point. I mean, that's kind of my point, is if you're a well-run entity, you've got a good operation there, it never gets to this point. You identify there's a challenge. This complaint was likely made, and from what I saw, it was made to the White Sox directly over the course of many months. They had many chances to deal with this before it became a PR disaster. But as we're seeing with every aspect of this franchise, either they're just completely incompetent or they've completely given up, or all of the above. But I gotta tell you, I hit the point this week where I was kind of like, they moved to Nashville, I don't know if I would care. And considering every other article of clothing in my closet for years was a White Sox piece of clothing. I went to 20-30 games a year. The fact that I just don't care, that tells you how bad this franchise is and how low it's sunk.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you there, Colin. I certainly agree that things are terrible and I hate every minute of it, but I do want to see the White Sox stick in Chicago. They have been a large part of my life the last 23 years. And if the White Sox move to Nashville or even worse, Naperville, I would be very upset.
Look, if they move, the North Side will adopt you both. You might be able to see.
We don't want to.
Over my dead body.
And
we don't want it.
Open arms. We got an ADA stadium, a sports book. It'll be great.
No chance. 0%. I'll be at American Family Field up in Milwaukee. Thank you very much.
Well, that place
these stadium names are the worst nowadays. All right, let's move to political topics. We got a lot to cover. We had some fun with sports, but we got some political things we need to get into. So first, this is a topic worth covering, but I want to start with giving kudos. We call a lot on Republican entities to get better about calling out the other side, and the Illinois Republican Party did that this past week, calling out Supreme Court Justice Liz Rochford for speaking at a Democratic women's fundraiser up in Lake County. They brought attention to it. They did a great job calling it out. It was absolutely a stupid thing by Rochford to do. She deserves all the negativity that's going to come with this, though she's a Democrat, so more than likely she'll get away with it. But kudos to the Illinois Republican Party on this. Let's talk about what happened. So Rochford spoke at the Republican, was it the Republican Women of Lake County? Democrat Women. I think I keep saying Republican, don't I? Democrat Women of Lake County fundraiser. And her defense was, oh, I didn't talk about anything that was political, but she was the headline speaker at a fundraiser for the Democratic Party. If a Republican did that, they'd never be allowed to get away with it. Complaints can be filed with the Judicial Inquiry Board, which they tend to be fairly tough. Have a feeling, though, this being a Supreme Court justice, she'll get a, don't do that again, but just a slap on the wrist because, she's going to get away with it. But this was a big no-no. Our company has run a number of judicial campaigns over the years. And every single one of my clients, every member of our team, we all know you don't do this. The fact that a sitting Supreme Court justice just flaunted the rules, which is frankly what they've been doing for these Supreme Court races the last couple of years. So it's not a surprise, but it is kind of pathetic. Who's got thoughts on this? Matt, it's in your region, so why don't you start?
Yeah, well, what it shows really is that these judicial races really matter. A lot of times when parties are supporting candidates or when people are talking about who to vote for in the upcoming election, the judges and stuff, they're at the bottom of the ballot, so we don't give them time or credence. But that's almost the most important thing, and we need to be paying attention to these things because here you have judges who are supposed to be the last line of defense, the rule of law, full stop, heads down, the end, and you have them playing politics, which is completely absurd. We'll focus on Congress people or representatives or even the executive branch, but we don't focus on what really matters, which is the judiciary. So I think it's ridiculous, and kudos to Sean McCabe and a lot of people of the Illinois GOP because most people wouldn't even pay attention to this, and I think that we need to be pointing this out. And when we are in the super minority or the minority, we might not be able to push forward legislation or might not be able to get our agenda across. But what we can do is be the watchdog, and we can show what the other side is doing incorrectly. So I think we need to be doing this more. We got to be watching our judges and make sure they're not falling out of line because what she did is totally absurd.
I mean, Oliver, I know that you've been frustrated about this going back to the campaign when she and her fellow Democrat counterpart were elected, where similarly during the campaign, they flaunted the rules on what judicial candidates are and aren't allowed to do. They weren't held accountable then. And now we're surprised that she's still not following the rules. Like, hey, if you don't hold them accountable during the campaign, then of course they're going to think they can get away with it.
Right. You took the words right out of my mouth. It like goes back to Republicans. Sometimes we just need to be a little bold in calling this stuff out. And so when they see that we're not going to call them out for this behavior, even though it's improper, they're just going to keep doing it. It's like a kid, like breaking the rules to see how many times, or like I'm going to talk about the Chiefs again when one of their players was lining up illegally the entire game. Like he knew he was doing it, but the refs weren't calling it. So why wouldn't you keep cheating if you're going to get away with it? So it's a very similar situation. But what's kind of interesting is that I've heard that when she's on the bench, she's actually fairly, reasonable in terms of how she hears cases. So it's interesting to me that she's kind of getting into this political arena when she's been so careful to kind of stray the middle on the bench.
Well, there's some insight here on just Rochford in general, which is there's a trend in Lake County where the Republicans say, oh, that Democrat isn't that bad. Let's not fight them too much. They did that with Melinda Bush when Melinda Bush was first elected, because in the county, they're like, hey, she wasn't too bad. We don't need to do anything about her. And then she turns out she leads this giant movement to elect Democrats throughout the county. And we saw this with the county board chair, Sandy Hart, where a lot of Republicans said, oh, Sandy Hart's not that bad. Let's leave her there. Well, then she gets elevated to board chair, and now she's one of the most partisan people in all of Lake County. I heard this over and over again with Liz Rochford was, oh, she's a great judge. She's pretty bipartisan. She's not really that overly Democrat. Don't worry, she's not bad. Well, there she is. She got elected to the Supreme Court, and now she's headlining fundraisers for the Democratic Party. I mean, at a certain point, I think the Republicans, especially in Lake County, need to start to recognize that the Democrats aren't your friend. And every time you go into it going, oh, they're not that bad, don't worry about it. That's not how they look at politics. They look at it like war while you're playing patty cake. And it's been the last 6, 8, 10 years in Lake County where we've heard this over and over that, oh, that Democrat's not too bad. And then 2, 4 years later, I hear from the same people, man, that Democrat's the worst. I hate them so much. They're so awful. I'm like, I still have the email from 4 years ago when you said that they weren't that bad. Like, we're creating these problems in many cases for ourselves. And Rochford's yet another example of that.
And you hear it in other suburban counties where some of these county parties are struggling. It's like, oh, so and so, that candidate, they're not that bad. They're really kind of Republican, but they're running as a Democrat.
Well,
So
you
we're really
reported
just
about
not.
that in King County, didn't you?
Yeah, and I've heard it in DuPage County as well. Like especially at these subcircuits, there's some people that we all know are Republicans or suspected to be Republicans, but we're not opposing them because they think they have a better path as running as Democrats. Like, oh, it's not a big deal. I guess we're getting our people in there still, but then, who knows once they get in office, like they're going to make decisions that maybe we're not going to be happy with. So,
Yeah.
And this particular Supreme Court district, I think, is a great example of we need to, as Republicans, view the big picture after the primary. So there was a really contested primary on the Republican side, and a lot of Republicans didn't get out and vote for that candidate. There was some bad blood. There was probably some things said that shouldn't have been said. But at the end of the day, Republicans need to know that if they stick together, any Republican is probably better than any Democrat. I'll say that as a Republican. But we're seeing the effects of what happens when you don't get behind those Republican candidates is you get a terrible justice like Liz Rochford, and we could have prevented this in the first place.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great point. All right, so the Republican Party did a great job there. Let's talk about some of the other issues that are available to Republicans to call out the other side, because there's been several in the news this week, and I want to cover a few of them. And to be fair, Republicans have started talking about some of these things. So, but there's things that our audience is right of center. So we're talking to our people, be watching these issues, be talking about these issues, because you have a great chance to hold the other side accountable. Let's talk about something we've talked about a few times now on SFRs, which is employees of the Pritzker administration who have been participating in fraud. It's now been reported that at least 177 members, let me say that again, 177 members of the Pritzker administration defrauded the PPP program. And listen, they have 438 pending investigations. They've only done 204 of those, and that's where they found the 177. So they have twice as many still to do, or the same amount still to do. So this is, for now, 177. And by the way, they're only investigating cases of those who got 20,000 or more. And so there are plenty more that they're not looking at that maybe ask for less. So there is rampant fraud in the Pritzker administration amongst employees. Of course, the very first response from the Pritzker administration is, this is no big deal. The second response is, this is all Republicans' fault, which I don't know how the hell they say that. And then they just try to sweep it under the rug. My question is, if we don't hold them accountable, are they going to be held accountable for this? If this is a Republican administration and that many employees were found to have defrauded the government for what turns out to be so far $4.5 million. And let me make something clear. This is $4.5 million out of a program that was intended to keep employees on the payroll, to help working families. The very foundation of what's supposed to be the Illinois Democratic Party is helping working families. And yet it was Pritzker employees who defrauded a program that was supposed to help working families. This is, I believe, a huge opening for Republicans against Pritzker and any other Democrat who doesn't call this out. And by the way, Kwame Raoul, if he doesn't prosecute these cases, there's an opening here and Republicans need to be talking about it. What are you guys hearing about this? And what are your thoughts about the PPP situation?
I mean, 177 out of 204, that's like 87% of the people that they...
Were you doing some quick math, Michael? Were you?
I did it on my phone. Yeah, I'm not that smart. But, 87% of the people that they've investigated so far, they've found, probable cause or, enough that they're pursuing it further. So I'm sure, out of these remaining, there's probably going to be a lot more. And it's terrible that you had people, small business owners and employees that were struggling to get by over the course of that 2-year period because of the lockdown that Pritzker imposed on us. And here his employees are taking some of the money for themselves. Terrible.
Well, and Michael, I know we've talked about this before we started recording these episodes, but these are employees, the vast majority, I wish they would track this, and maybe somebody will at some point. The vast majority of government employees were paid to stay home during this period. So you're talking about a bunch of people who most likely, most if not all of them, were paid to stay home and do no work, and yet they spent that time defrauding the government to get paid even more of money that was supposed to go to people who were just trying to survive. The whole thing is just rotten to the core.
Well, I know
that's why Chris is a Democrat.
Yeah. There are horror
Makes
stories
sense.
of people trying to get a hold of government agencies during COVID, unemployment and other things. And these people are working from home. And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of them that were, getting up every morning and doing their job, but there was a lot of slacking going on. That's for sure. And then
well, let me say
are.
this. I know a big chunk of this were Department of Health and Human Services, I believe, which many of those were still working. So maybe it wasn't a majority. Let me make sure I make that point to clarify. We don't have the data on it, but at least some of these people were paid to stay home and still defrauded the government. So, but I want to make sure I'm fair about that. Knowing it was DHS, they may have still been working during that time. Any thoughts, Chris? This sounds like this is right up your alley of you wouldn't think this is too bad because, you got to get paid, right?
Honestly, I do think it's pretty bad, Colin. Here's why.
If Chris thinks this is bad, I want to hear
no,
this.
I mean, frankly, it is bad for a number of reasons. Number one, it's just people defrauding the government and taking away money from the hardworking people of this country, which was a problem the entire COVID lockdown stuff. Was that there was millions and millions of people who really needed help in this country, and there was millions of people who didn't need help who were just taking advantage of the system. So that's sad for one. But I will spin it my own way because it's me, Colin. I got to spin it my own way. For years, we had the people were saying that, Madigan. He was the pinnacle of corruption and government incompetence in this state. But, I don't remember anything happening amongst speaker staff. You don't see them defrauding PPP programs. So I'm saying, I think where I'm going with this is things might be worse in terms of corruption amongst people in government in the state of Illinois than they might have ever been. And that's sad to say considering where the state's been the last few decades.
So what you're saying, Chris, is Madigan was a pro at corruption. He wasn't dumb enough to do this petty kind of stuff where he might get caught. These are amateurs, and that's what ticks you off. Is if you're going to be corrupt, at least be good at it. Is that your point?
Right. Yeah, in a way, yeah.
I kind of enjoy that point. I like Chris's spin on it. If you're going to be corrupt, at least don't be a dumbass in the process. At least, figure out a good way to do it. Which, by the way, I think that's a point I'd expect Chris to make. So well done, buddy.
And look, listen, Madigan and those people, they were, alleged they were making their money off of, property taxes and, fudging the numbers over there. This is taking money that doesn't belong to you from the government at the expense of working people. This is just way, way more blatant and way more evil, in my opinion.
And I'd be interested to see, as this plays out, was there collusion kind of between employees? How do 177 people all formulate the same thought in their mind and say, hey, I'm going to defraud this program? I mean, and probably even more than that.
I mean, are they
communicating with each other saying, hey, try this. I just did it. It worked for me.
Well, and clearly there's a culture there that allows this. I mean, as much as you want to say this isn't Pritzker's fault, it's the employee's fault. When you're talking about 5 or 10, okay, yeah, you know what? People do stupid things. I get it. But 177, and this investigation's just started. That's a culture thing. And by the way, as is typical of the Republican Party, the head of DHS, while this was all going on, just got a promotion by Pritzker. So, I mean, this is failing upward in the state of Illinois. I mean, there's clearly a culture here that allowed this. And to your point, Michael, that many people doing this, there was some level of communication between these people to coordinate these efforts. All right, next, another thing. And this one is one that my wife and I have taken pretty personal because if you guys have seen, I've been outspoken about the problems at DCFS. I don't believe it's a partisan problem. I think there's been failures at DCFS under Republican governors and under Democrat governors, but it's a Democrat governor right now, and he's not being held responsible for just what an abject failure DCFS is. And we're seeing it on the witness stand. We're seeing it on display right now in McHenry County, where the two DCFS workers during the AJ Friend debacle, for lack of a better term, where a young boy cruelly lost his life by abuse and neglect by his parents, both of which are in prison for 20 to 25 year sentences right now. The DCFS workers, who at worst were neglectful and at best were just completely incompetent, are now facing criminal charges, felony charges for that. Our friend, family friend, and client of court, Patrick Canale, is fighting that. My wife thinks he's a boss for taking this fight to the courts, and I kind of agree with that a little bit. And trying to hold these guys responsible for this level of incompetence. But here's why this is important, and here's why we're talking about this. Because one of the two, Carlos Acosta, was a Democratic member of the McHenry County Board for years. Well, this happened in 2019. He was in office until 2022. And he was not pressured by his own party to step down. He was not pressured by the grassroots to step down. Only one person publicly said, Jack Franks, the Democratic board chairman, said when he was worried about his reelection because he realized he was going to get his butt kicked, quickly jumped out and said, oh no, this is bad, Carlos should step down. I talked to him. But other than that, no efforts were made to make this guy step down. And corruption is corruption, failure is failure. A young boy died, and yet the Democratic Party in McHenry County refused to hold this guy accountable, let him sit in office for 3 more years. And I know because I was involved with some of the people who were screaming about this on the Republican side, and nobody did anything. The media gave a tiny bit of pressure, and that was it, on a guy who was sitting on the McHenry County board and yet contributed to the failure that cost this young boy his life. And if you don't know the story, Google it, AJ Friend, Freund. It's brutal. And so this has a bearing on Democrats and corruption and not holding their own accountable in the state. We don't have a ton of coverage in McHenry County, but I know John and Matt, you guys do some work there in the county, and some of you else might have some thoughts. Anybody have thoughts on this?
Yeah, the interesting thing about this case is that in the couple weeks prior to the case going to the courts in McHenry County, I saw a few media outlets pick up on another thing that was going on. That was Keneally was suing like pot dealers or like weed distribution sites and all this stuff like that. I'm like, who cares? And they were making this to be like such a big deal. Like, oh, look at Keneally, he's going after the weed industry. Look, what an idiot. But like here he's doing something great, good, and nobody cares about it. That's the really sad thing about all this. The media has devoted more time and effort into making fun of Pat Keneally for suing marijuana dispensaries than they are about him taking action against DCFS. That's
honestly, who's out there? I mean, Pritzker's answer whenever DCFS comes up is, oh, we put a few more bucks towards it, and that's it. Like, Pat's actually doing something to hold these people accountable. This absolutely should be talked about more. So I agree with you, Chris. I mean, I was on the front lines of this. We had several campaigns in McHenry County in 20 and 22 that frankly got elected, Republican candidates who got elected because of speaking out about this case, talking about this situation. It was a hotbed in McHenry County politics. And yet it just doesn't seem to break the news. And I know McHenry County is a little further out from the city, tends to be ignored a lot by the Chicago media, but DCFS should absolutely be talked about more in this state because it is impacting kids. And there is no excuse for it. I don't care whether it's a Republican or Democrat in the governor's office. This is absolutely unacceptable, the failures at DCFS. And I'd say good on Pat Keneally for doing something about it. All right, next thing. That's another opening. All right, so I'm going to tell you what the headline of this should be the next time Pritzker runs for something. I'm not saying this is what I believe happened. I'm just telling you in politics, it's all about the spin. All right, and this is how this will get spun if somebody knows what the heck they're doing. J.B. Pritzker just gave $500 million to the Chinese Communist Party. That's how that could or should be spun by Republicans and conservatives. Now, let me give you the whole story. Big news over the last week. A Chinese company called Goshen is bringing a $2 billion investment into the state of Illinois to build batteries for electric vehicles. This is a big investment into the state, and from an economic development standpoint, there's a reason why a lot of organizations are happy about it. And if I take off my partisan hat, I can understand the value of the economic development benefits to the state of Illinois. But I'm not taking off my political hat because that's my job, is to wear that political hat. In order to make this happen, Pritzker had to give them $536 million in tax incentives. And it's been reported that Goshen has deep ties to the Chinese Communist Party. And so Pritzker's rightfully getting a tiny bit of heat, but it's Pritzker, so he never gets more than just a tiny bit of heat. He should be getting a heck of a lot more. But I'm just telling you from a spin perspective, if you're a Republican and you oppose J.B. Pritzker, you should be calling him out on this and asking, do you agree with this investment into the Chinese Communist Party, so-and-so state rep, so-and-so state senator, anybody that agreed to these incentives down in Springfield? Lots of sitting incumbent legislators on the Democrat side in the House and the Senate voted to allow Pritzker to have these incentive dollars. And so there should be press release after press release after press release being sent out on, hey, do you agree that this vote you made to allow J.B. Pritzker to give this money to a Chinese Communist Party owned company was acceptable? I know it's going to ruffle some feathers with IMA and some of the business interests. I get that, but sometimes you got to take it to the other side, even when your base won't be happy. I want to see press releases out on this because there's a lot of Democrats who voted to give J.B. Pritzker this power, and it's this is a forgive the term, but it's a sexy headline, and you could run a great TV ad on this if you actually make it an issue. So Republicans should be absolutely making this an issue. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, he knows that Republicans aren't going to make it an issue, and he knows that he's able to get away with things similar to what we were talking earlier about Justice Rochford. Is if you don't get away with things before, or if you do get away with things and they don't call you out on things repeatedly, then you know you can keep getting away with it. And I think that he knows that he can. He knows Republicans aren't going to call him out on it. And he frankly doesn't care about if it actually negatively affects the people of Illinois. If he can say, hey, I did something to promote the environment, and he gets to stand on his environmental bootstraps and his whole I want to be the most progressive governor kind of platform that he's trying to do, he doesn't care about the people of Illinois, and he knows that he's not going to get called on it. So why wouldn't he?
I mean, listen, I don't think he's ever cared if Republicans call him out on it, but I think the question is, will the media call him out on it? That's really my question. And there's been a little bit of a notice, but listen, this is not the only investment like this in the country. When you look at other states where this has happened, the media actually does question the governor on it and does question decision makers. And they say, this is kind of icky, guys. Let's look into it. But here in this state, it's like, just let Pritzker get away with it. Everything's rosy. Whatever spin Pritzker puts on it, the media just runs with it and doesn't call him out on it. I mean, when even Rich Miller and Cat Fax is like, hey, there's kind of a little bit of something here, just a little bit. I mean, if even Cat Fax is saying that, then you know there's probably something there you should be talking about.
I think part of it is, though, the lack of coverage or lack of people calling him out. There are some people that are kind of terrified of China and don't really want to say anything because what if China comes after me? It's kind of like when Disney was filming like Mulan, where they had like concentration camps in China and they were fine to do that, but God forbid they film a movie in Alabama where, you know, abortion's banned at 12 weeks. Like, they made a big stink about that policy.
Yeah, but listen, let's be honest. Mulan stopped being Mulan the minute they didn't have Eddie Murphy playing the dragon. So the live action remake just doesn't matter to me because Eddie Murphy made the animated version.
That's true, but it's the principle. It's like
I get you.
LeBron James,
I'm just adding a pop culture
Cena
reference to
Joe
prove
Biden.
that. I'm just adding a pop culture reference to prove that political people do have some pop culture knowledge. We're not all complete and total geeks.
Yeah, that's true.
So I must include the kind of macroeconomic take here, because this is just another testament to the political class in this country selling the American worker out to the Chinese. This has been happening for decades. Could you imagine if the governor of the state of Illinois gave $5 million in tax breaks to a company from the Soviet Union during the Cold War? China's our greatest adversary right now, and they're selling us down the river right now. And here we are helping the Chinese here in the state of Illinois. We're incentivizing them to profit more and to take more money away from U.S. businesses and U.S. companies. This is the stupidest thing ever. But again, everybody wants to see the Chinese do good because you know what? It's good for an American consumer. Well, I'm here to tell you, in the next 5 to 10 years, if this keeps going on, it's going to be terrible for the American consumer. But nobody wants to call
I try to predict sometimes what are the issues I'm going to bring up where Chris is going to oppose me because it's fun and our viewers tend to like that. I thought this was one you'd oppose me because this investment will create jobs for Illinois workers. And so being the guy who's all for Illinois workers, I figured you'd say I'm crazy because this is jobs for American working families at this plant. So I'm a little shocked to hear you actually take the other side of it.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm certainly happy that there's going to be American taxpayers getting jobs in this country. I'm certainly happy about that. I'm certainly glad we're going to make something in this country. But who's it benefiting? It's benefiting some Chinese company that's going to benefit the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese Communist government, who is screwing America out. Again, this is the Chinese giving us a little bit, and they're giving us an inch, but they're taking a mile from us. It's the same thing. So there's a little bit of good in this, and that's a few people getting jobs here. But long-term, this is terrible because the Chinese are beating us on the world stage, and now they might beat us on our own turf.
See, John and Abby are very smart. They're not saying anything. And right now, there's some people in China, and they're saying, Colin's social credit score, down. Chris, down. Michael, down. So when China takes over, we're all done for. But John will be in his high rise, so I guess he'll kick his feet up then.
Well, I think, so like beyond like the Chinese and all of that, if this plant works the way it's intended to, it could be a linchpin for more economic growth in Illinois. Because you got to remember, under the governor's administration, the REV Act It's kind of one of his key goals for long-term economic development. So hopefully this battery plant can help potentially spur Chrysler, to retool the Belvedere Chrysler plant into producing electric vehicles, help Rivian stay afloat. So, there could be some really good benefits here, but there's also that like weighing of helping the Chinese Communist Party, helping the economic development in the state of Illinois.
And that's why I couched this the way that I did, because there have been times where I've said, I say this a lot, good government does not make good politics. And this is one of those times where you can say that there is some good government here, but our job's to talk about politics. So we're just talking about the political implications here. We're not talking about economic development. I'm not an economic development specialist. None of you guys are. So we're just talking about the politics of this. And this is an opening to go after Pritzker. And that's all. That was the focus of the point. We could get into economic development, but I don't think any of us have a leg to stand on that topic. All right, let's keep moving. We got a bunch to get over. All right, this one I don't think will be a huge topic because we've talked about it before. But on the topic of things that are openings for Republicans to talk about, cash bail ends on Monday. So the thing we've been talking about now for several years in Illinois, it's going to start officially happening on Monday. And the point I want to make on this, and I'll let you guys jump in if you have any thoughts, is it's no longer about the SAFETY Act. Starting on Monday, it's no longer, I don't want to hear SAFETY Act anymore. I want to see a focus on people. If you oppose this, you got to do the hard work of watching. And every time a criminal is let off who would have been held on cash bail, but is instead let off, you've got to track that criminal and find out, do they commit another crime? And every time they do, you got to put that in the news. You got to put that out. That's a ton of legwork to make that happen. But you can't rest on the laurels of, oh, the SAFETY Act is so horrible. That's old news now. It is now policy. It is now happening on Monday. And if you want to fight this, and if you want crime to be in the news and to be a good mover of votes come 2024, which we need it to be, then you got to do the hard work now of watching every county. And when somebody is let off that wouldn't have been let off on the old system and they commit another crime, you got to get that out there every single time. This is going to be a lot of hard work if you want crime to be an issue that works in 24. It's possible, but I don't know if our party has got the wherewithal to put in that kind of work. But if they do, they could kill this thing and they could have a great issue in November of 24 as a great contrast issue. That's it. Nobody have thoughts? Just Colin rant and we move on.
Going to be anarchy in the streets of Illinois once again.
I mean, here, this is very similar to what the Pat O'Brien campaign did against Kim Foxx. They had a whole effort called Fox Fails, and every time there was a criminal who Kim Foxx let back out of the streets, they'd tell that story and put that out. It's part of why O'Brien overperformed by 35 points over the top of the ticket and almost took out Kim Foxx in deep blue Cook County when Trump was on the top of the ticket, when everyone says you can't win as a Republican with Trump at the top of the ticket. And he almost did it by focusing on this concept. They had, I give him credit, I give his team credit, they had people watching, and they had story after story after story of people Fox put back on the streets who then committed another crime. That's the kind of thing that needs to happen here. And if you do it, you can make an issue, a really powerful issue for you, but you're going to have to put in the legwork.
I'd love to see
Well,
how
I think as Republicans, we always look for the simple solution to our problems, and we're not necessarily looking to put in the long-term effort. So it's a great idea, but like you said, are we really actually going to put in the effort to do it? I don't know.
I hope so, because SAFETY Act ain't going to move votes. Saying those words come November of 2024, it's not enough. We need to show that crime has gotten worse as a result and focus on crime, not the SAFETY Act, and safety, not the SAFETY Act. And that's the transition we got to do, and it's going to take a lot of work to do it. So I'll end on that. I hope they put the work in, but let's see. Let's see if it happens. All right, next. With the veto session coming up in the end of October, I've been seeing in the news a lot the last week or two that the Invest in Kids proponents are really starting to put their side out and get this out in the news and try to ramp up pressure. It's clear there's a full court press here, a full effort. We are, a month and a half away from legislators having to either vote up or down on Invest in Kids and extending it in the veto session. So just curious if you guys are hearing anything, seeing anything. It may just be a quick notice to our watchers and listeners that we're going to be talking about this because it's going to be in the news for the next 2 months. Anybody have thoughts on it, or is it just a quick primer?
It's definitely ramping up, and it's good to see them beat up on the Chicago Teachers Union president for sending her kids to private school when in the past she said that it was racist if you did that. So
I mean, again, I said this before, even when Capital Facts calls you out and says you screwed up when you're a liberal, I mean, that's telling you have gone 20 steps too far. And when he's calling out Stacey Davis Gates, that tells you are way too far in the wrong side of this.
This is a really important program, and it really needs to be saved, and hopefully they can keep the pressure on long enough that the Democrats allow it to continue, because we need it bad.
Well, we'll see. I mean, we've already seen several common sense bills basically be told it's going to die because Welch isn't even going to call it in veto session, like the nuke bill. So this is very well maybe another area where Welch just covers for Pritzker and keeps it from ever making it onto the floor. So we'll see. I don't know how it's all going to work. We're going to have some updates in some of our future episodes from lobbyists and people who are down in Springfield. So to our watchers and listeners, we will make sure you know what's going on with this, and as much as we can, give you the inside scoop. All right, next, Michael. Down in your region, I hear Mary Miller's getting a little bit of grief for not bringing home the bacon. What's going on?
Yeah, there was a article over Adams County area, which is like Quincy, kind of criticizing her for not bringing money back to the district. Obviously, she kind of has it's a principled stance for her that she doesn't really believe in earmarks and doesn't think that they should be happening at all. So instead of putting her name in the hat or putting projects, proposing projects for that money, she's just not doing it. So the money's all going elsewhere. And, there's that article I heard from some mayors or a mayor. I've heard that some of the community college presidents are kind of aggravated with her because they see it as there's money on the table and they would like for it to be spent here as opposed to somewhere else. Like, we don't need it to be spent on heated sidewalks in Chicago or cleaning crap off the sidewalks in San Francisco. Like, I would like for it to be spent in Illinois on projects that are worthwhile, but unfortunately it's not going to happen. It doesn't sound like.
Well, these are tax dollars. These are tax dollars, right? So we're paying this money.
Exactly, Colin. Like, these are tax dollars, so the money's going to go somewhere. You might as well make sure, even if you agree with the philosophy of earmarks or not, to make sure that money comes back into your district. So you can go around to these mayors, community college presidents, and say, hey, I've brought this money home. I mean, even Lauren Boebert, her district is much more competitive than Mary Miller's. There's a recent Politico article talking about how she has back home, she's working to bring earmarks. She's telling voters she's reforming earmarks, but still, even some of these more conservative members are working to bring money back home because they understand the value that it brings to their district. If this money is going to get spent, bring it to your district and make these investments.
We talk about in politics how we hate hypocrisy. Well, I do. How hypocrisy is just the thing I can't stand in politics. So I will say this. I will give kudos to Mary Miller for being intellectually consistent and that she hates this, so she refused to participate. But my question to you all, and I'll start with you, Chris, because you were jumping in before, but my question to you all is this. At a certain point, when your righteous stand and you believe you're right, and you're probably right that earmarks are pork, and maybe not something we should do, but when your righteous stand hurts the people of your district, which now these are dollars that the people in her district are not getting to take advantage of, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a philosophical debate that I think is fascinating. And Chris, I'd be curious your thoughts.
So it comes down to whether or not you're actually willing to do the job that you signed up for. One of the issues with many of these more activist types, grassroots types, to be frank here, getting elected to these positions is that they're getting elected to go to Congress. But what's the job of the congressman? The job of the congressman is to bring back federal money for their district. If you don't do that, you're just an empty payroll on the government's expense, voting for nothing over in Washington, D.C. So you got people like Mary Miller and others too, Marie Newman, cough, cough. Thank God she's gone. But you have people like that who get elected on these stupid issues, and then they get elected to Congress, and all they do is oh, look at me, I'm Congresswoman Mary Miller. I'm doing absolutely nothing for my district. Vote for me again. That's what this comes down to. The job of a congressman, fundamentally, is to bring back the federal dollars that go to Washington back to their district. If you do not do that, you are not a member of Congress. You are a waste of space.
But she gets to walk around. But hold on, she gets to walk around with her Trump purse and take photos with her Trump purse. So I feel like that's a benefit of her being congressperson.
That's not what being a member of Congress is about. You know what? Donald Trump went to Washington D.C. as president, and he says we're going to have infrastructure. We're going to send that money back to the districts, and we're going to build things again in this country. But she is fundamentally opposed to that mentality. She does not want to build things in the 15th congressional district. She just wants to go to Washington and have photo ops.
I think that goes to a larger point, Chris, and I'll kind of agree with you and kind of disagree with you. But people go to Washington or where, even Springfield, wherever they're elected, and they will kind of define the job for what they want it to be. There is no one definition of what a congressman is supposed to be in the eyes of people. Some people will say that the person in Congress is supposed to represent their views. Some people say the person is supposed to represent their own views. And some people would say that it's supposed to represent the majority of the views in the district. And I think nationally, we need to redefine what does it mean when you're going to elect someone to represent you. Because on one hand, they voted for Mary Miller because they liked what she stood for and her issues. But on the other hand, there's other people who say they elected her not to have her own views, but to have the views of the people. And I think that everyone has a different opinion on this. And that's part of the political division, and part of the division within primaries is not knowing what it means when you actually vote for someone and what their job is supposed to be. For all intents and purposes, I think that the president should have as little power as possible, and they're just supposed to execute the laws. They're not supposed to have any views on really anything. They're just supposed to execute the laws, but that's a really unpopular opinion, and a lot of people would disagree with that. So are we going to go with what the Constitution says or what individual people say? I don't know. That's the conversation.
Here's what I'll say to this point, Trey. I agree with your former point a little bit here. But whenever people talk about earmarks and the role of a congressman, I always point to a certain former congressman. And that's Congressman Ron Paul from Texas. Ron Paul is libertarian. Ron Paul hated earmarks, never voted for one. But when any earmark came up for his district, he made sure his district got every red cent that was allocated to them, because he knew, despite his own personal opposition earmarks, that he believed they shouldn't exist. He didn't believe the federal government should do next to nothing. But he said, if we're paying these taxes and we're supposed to get money back, we're going to get every red cent until we can finally do away with the earmarks. That's how.
So is he a hypocrite for that? Is he a hypocrite for that?
No, I think he was very. I think he knew his job as a congressman, and that was to get the money back that was being allocated for. But he was principled in that he never actually voted for it.
It's an interesting philosophical debate, and one I wish we had more time for if we weren't already almost out of time today. But it's interesting, and I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out for Miller. I mean, she's in no threat to lose her district, even in a primary, so she's fine. But it is interesting to see local Republicans calling her out for it. There's some interest there. All right, last thing before we get into our Illinois campaign updates, and this is just a quick thing that I found interesting. So a study was done, and it was by CPAC, and the whole point of it was to focus on how Republican lawmakers don't vote with their party as much as Democrat lawmakers do, and they should be voting more conservatively. And that was the point of the study. And I'm not really interested in talking about that. You're welcome to look it up and look up that story. It was in Daily Wire. But here's what stood out to me as I read down through it. They also talked about which Democratic parties voted the most against their far base, their progressive base. And they called it radical. The most radical Democrats were in New Jersey, where they voted 0% on conservative issues. And then second worst, who voted only 1%, was a group of 5 states, including Illinois, where they only voted 1% with the conservative position. And it just was interesting to me, just as another sign about how liberal the lawmakers in this state are. Everything we've seen in this state shows it's a working class state that, yes, votes blue, but it is not far, far left progressive. And here's yet another study, yet another finding that shows just how far left the Democratic Party in this state has moved. So we've talked about it a lot. You guys may not have some thoughts on it. It was just something I figured was worth bringing up because it's yet another proof of the point we've made. This is the 18th episode. We probably made this 10 different times at least over the course of these 18 episodes.
Well, I think, when people talk about like liberal, they think New York and California, but obviously we see this study and, from personal experience dealing with the Illinois state legislature, that the Democrats here push some pretty extreme bills. We're not far behind those states. We're usually the first one to do something or following behind one of those others. So everything from, we got a lot of work to do. That's for sure.
Well, but there's openings.
Yes. I think political types very often confuse ideology and political demographics. So we'll say that just because some place is super, super Democratic or super, super Republican, that it is very conservative or very liberal. And I think that can cloud our judgment when actually looking at the populace and seeing how people actually believe that a lot of times if a place is very Republican leading or Democrat leading, it might not have as much to do with ideology as we think. And I think we have to look past that in order to start winning when we're in the super minority in Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Matt, you're not wrong. I mean, people just, if you look at the world just through the lens of Republican or Democrat, you miss a lot of what's in politics. Politics is not 2D, yet too many people look at it through that very simplified lens. So I'd agree with the point. All right, we're at minute 50, and we're just going to start our campaign updates. There's a few of these that I feel like you guys are going to have some thoughts. So we're going to dive into a couple of these a little more, and then we are going to do the fastest of fast hits to give people the updates they need to know. But let's go into a couple of these that are worth talking about. So first, in one of the funniest updates of the week, Joe SeveRINO in IL10, who you've heard us talk about a couple times, who's just been a massive problem for the Republican Party, shocked nobody in filing this week with the FEC that he's running as a Democrat, not as a Republican. And so this candidate who has spent the last several months trying to tell us all who a real Republican is and who a real Republican isn't actually even a Republican. He's running as a Democrat. So talk about just the most ridiculous thing. My is the moment that filing happened. From then until like midnight, I must have had 30 different texts from people. It was unreal. And everyone thought, was this just a mistake? Because you just couldn't believe that he was just that, well, let's just say it, that crazy. But here he is. He's running as a Democrat. Matt, what are you hearing?
Yeah, it seems like some people it was a huge surprise. Other people, it wasn't really a surprise. The people who were surprised were more the conservative type saying, hey, this guy was supposed to be in our corner and now he's fighting for the other team. And all his support in the Republican Party, what little support he did have is just completely out the window now. But the people who weren't surprised were the people who kind of saw through the smoke and mirrors and saw a little bit of the craziness. And I mean, hey, this is just a guy who obviously wants to get his name out there. He doesn't really care about actually having effective change. He just wants to be crazy and do whatever he wants to do.
But I think this is the point. Like I think now in 18 episodes, we can say this emphatically, that we are objective and we are fair. And even times when there are people we disagree with politically, we still try to be objective about it and say nice things. And if Joe SeveRINO ever truly believed the things he was saying, we never would have attacked him on this podcast because, fine, you know what, we disagree with you, but at least you're being intellectually honest and you truly do care. But what was clear to all of us was that Joe SeveRINO was never out for the Republican Party. He was never out for conservative principles. He's always only been out for Joe SeveRINO. He's only been out for himself. And this just is a final nail in the coffin. And good luck. He's the Democrats' problem now. And thank God we can all move on from him.
One more thing
here. No, go on, Darren.
Strategically, it makes no sense because does he really expect his conservative base to go and pull a Democrat ballot when the same people that he was trying to get to vote for him are going to be voting for Trump 100%? I would be surprised if he gets more than 5% of the vote in that Democrat primary. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I'll be brief here. This is the 10th congressional district. This isn't like, over by me where maybe, just maybe, there's a little bit of an interest in the Trump-supporting Democratic candidate, maybe. But this is Lake County. This is the North Shore of Cook County. Like, who in their right mind in the Democratic primary is going to vote for Joe SeveRINO? Like, this is the stupidest. Like, this makes no strategic sense. He would have a
strategical.
Better
I like that. Strategical.
Yeah, strategic.
It's like the George Bushism. Chris is like George Bush now with strategery.
You never compare me to W ever again. But it just makes no sense. Like, he would have a better chance running against Karras in the primary. Really see how he has a little bit of he has a message like, I'm the more conservative guy. Republicans vote for me, and then he can get blown out by 40 points in the general election. But this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And
there was a path to victory for him in the Republican primary. Now, a hard one, but there at least was a path. Now there is no path. He is completely destroyed.
Let's stay on the 10th. Let's talk about the good news here for Republicans, which is Jim Karras has announced his race. And I'm hearing from you guys, Matt, and even Michael, you've heard that his fundraising has been fantastic. And now, I mean, he was going to have to spend a good amount of that money to get through this primary, dealing with the SeveRINO craziness, and now he likely won't have to. So this does significantly improve Republican odds in IL10. Now, is that a district that we can win? On paper, it doesn't look like it's a winnable district, especially not if we nominate Trump. But this does clear the field for Karras in the primary, and at least we're not going to have waste resources on that primary now. So this is good news for the party itself. Matt and Michael, what are you hearing on Jim Karras?
I heard that, strong fundraising so far. He's already brought in a little over $100,000. They've got a pretty lofty goal for the quarter. So we'll see, if they can kind of continue that momentum on the fundraising side. And I would just say that, we've got Republican congressmen in California and New York and New Jersey that really, if you look at the math, don't have business being there considering, how tough their districts are. But if he's able to raise, and $3-4 million, all together and from outside groups, he could really make this competitive and have a chance. So don't give up hope.
Yeah, listen, if the 10th flips, then that means it's a Republican tsunami across the country, which probably only happens if Trump isn't nominated. On paper, it is a district that seems in theory should be in play. D+8, D+9 is the way it should be. But Schneider always overperforms those numbers. So Karras is going to have a really tough time ahead of him. But SeveRIno underperformed among the worst of any candidate. He underperformed by, according to the data, 18%. So Karras will certainly do a heck of a lot better job than that. So is someone going to put it in play? If anyone could, it's hopefully Jim Karras. So we're going to keep an eye on the race.
Yeah, and the play would be run this time, put up a really good showing, build the momentum. If you don't win, run again in 2 years and slowly chip away at the needle. So we'll see where it goes, and anyone's better than SeveRIno at this point.
Let's move to another district where we have this is at the top of everybody's list for a flip for the Republicans, which is IL-17. We've hinted at this a couple times over the last couple months, and we've had to be careful because we couldn't give away some things that we weren't allowed to talk about. But we've kind of hinted that the party, especially National Party, wasn't super happy with the candidates available to them in IL-17. It seems like, from what we're hearing from a number of sources, there is a new candidate that may be popping up here. Who's heard something here about this new candidate here, Judge? Let me pull this up here. Judge Joe McGraw out of Rochford. Looks like he's starting to gear up here.
Yeah, he was on a conference call earlier this week with a lot of the county chairmen and is looking to make an announcement soon. So,
John, I know it's your region. You know anything about? I know he just recently retired. I wonder if he retired specifically for this. I don't know if you have any insight on that, but it does look like he's got a good, solid background and a really good resume for something like this. And coming out of the Rochford area, if you're going to need to win IL-17, you got to beat Sorensen in his own backyard. So there's some signs here, some good signs, but on paper it doesn't work. You got to run a good campaign.
Yeah, I just know a lot of people in the Winnebago County area are super excited about him and his, candidacy. Obviously, being a former member of being a former judge, I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of focus on law and order, public safety, and also, his extensive network in the legal community. I think is going to open up a really good fundraising opportunity through, various attorneys all over the district. So, but he is going to have to get through this primary. Ray Estrada has been out there working, building relationships within the grassroots communities and all over this district. So while he might be the best candidate in the general, he's still going to have to get through Ray Estrada in the primary.
Yeah, I think the issue here for Estrada would be Estrada has been actively trying to position himself as a moderate, not as a conservative. So this is one of those situations where we watch. Does Estrada pivot and try to change now to being the conservative candidate? If he doesn't, I don't know that he's going to have too much luck there. But to your point, if he does try to run to the right of the new candidate, then Estrada might be more difficult to challenge. But we're hearing Estrada's having a lot of campaign difficulties. So we'll have to see how that all comes together. All right, let's keep moving along. This is the first time in the whole episode, as we near an hour, that we're going to ask Lane to bring something up on screen. So I'm sure he's very happy about that. But Michael, I know you're seeing that Darren Bailey has put Trump's name on his campaign yard signs in aisle 12. So we don't have a ton of time to do a deep dive in aisle 12, but Lane's going to bring that image up. Why don't you tell us what's going on there with Bailey using Trump's name yet again?
Yeah, on his larger signs, he has a little tagline on there that says "Fights like Trump." So it sounds like that's going to be one of his campaign themes over the course of the next couple months. Let's talk.
Yeah, this is that group that runs those campaigns. This is part of their strategy. They did this with Mary Miller. When Mary Miller had her primary, they had Trump Miller signs printed up. There was other candidates in that race, and we said if you don't tie yourself to Trump, you'll never win the primary. And I give them credit; they didn't want to do it. They didn't believe in it, and Miller did it. And Miller blew them all out in that primary. So this has been part of their strategy for a long time, is to run in these primaries and put out signs and different things that had your name right next to Trump. So it shouldn't be a shock to anybody that Bailey's doing it. It's right out of their playbook.
Yep.
It might not be a shock, but at the same time, you have Mike Boss who's working to expunge, Trump's impeachment. So you're not going to really out Trump Congressman Boss here. So it'll just be interesting to watch.
Yeah, but if it's on every sign throughout the district and Boss doesn't do that, I mean, listen, this is at this point, it's a race about appealing to one person, and that's Trump and every Trump supporter. So I feel bad that a conservative lawmaker like Boss has to basically completely sell his soul to get through this primary. But at this point, it's clear what this race is going to be like. So if Boss doesn't have similar signs touting his ties to Bailey, this is going to be advantage Bailey.
Well, and we've heard rumors that this has already been decided and that Trump has told Darren that he's not going to endorse him. So, I mean, he can continue doing some of this stuff, but it may all be in vain if those rumors are true and this has already been decided what the end result is going to be.
Yeah, but then on the flip side, you've got Don Trump Jr. coming in, and Bailey's going to be at least a little bit involved in that, though we hear it's not as much as it was sold at first.
Yeah, kind of glorified bookseller, and I heard he had to promise a lot of sales. So we'll see if he can meet expectations.
All right, we are at an hour, and I got 10 campaign updates to get through. So I'm gonna give the updates, and then you guys jump in if you have thoughts. I'll give you a couple seconds, and if not, I'm gonna go right to the next one. This will be full on rapid fire. We talked about it before. IL-11 staying on congressional races. We mentioned Jerry Evans was going to be running. He's now officially announced his campaign that he's running in the 11th. Anyone have thoughts on that, Oliver? I know that's down in your region.
I mean, every time I talk to someone, especially in DuPage County, it seems like they're really excited about Jerry to be running again. So if he does well in that part of the district, he should be someone to watch in this race.
I'll have to see. I mean, some of the other candidates have been stumbling, so there is a path for Jerry.
Yeah.
I know it's his. I love that he's being true to him, true to himself, but leading with I'm a Christian. Again, I love that he's being true to himself, but to win a district like IL-11, I'm not sure that's how I present myself, but he does have to get through a primary first. So let's see how it goes. Next, House District 79. Oliver, I know you got to correct the record. I'm sorry, no, that's a different district. Here, so a highly touted Democrat. I'm going to probably screw up her first name. I pre-apologize. Genevra, I think, Walters was a superintendent. She's now challenging Jackie Haas, and the Dems seem really, really high on Walters in that district and House District 79. Anyone hearing anything about that district?
Yeah, she's the regional superintendent of schools for Kankakee County. She's not going to be running for re-election in a couple years. Democrats were high on their nominee in 2022 to the point that they literally drew the district to include their top tier candidate. Jackie Haas still blew them out of the water. Jackie Haas is a primary challenger. That might be a problem. She'll probably beat him too.
Yeah, it's a R7 district, so I mean, if the Democrats pick up that seat on us, then we're just completely done. But we'll keep an eye on the race. We'll keep everybody posted. All right, Oliver, House District 81. I know you had a quick correction on the record there.
Yeah, so Downers Grove, most fascinating township on planet Earth. Just lots of crazy drama, like 16 sides to every story. But long story short, Laura Hoyce is no longer running in House District 81. It looks like it's Aaron Porter's race right now. So I promised someone I would correct that. So I'm here correcting that. So it looks like no primary there in House District 81.
All right, we'll keep an eye on it. Yep. Next, sticking with you, Oliver, I know there's another candidate who's announced who's joining the 3rd District Appellate Court race, John Costello.
Yeah, so this is interesting because a lot of people in the DuPage legal community did not really know who this guy was when he announced. So from my understanding, he worked at the Attorney General's office and did in-house counsel for JP Morgan. So seems like he has a solid background, and I've heard good things. He's new to the political landscape, so we'll see how that race plays out. But it looks like we finally have all 3 of those slots filled for appellate court, which Chris and I were doing a lot of work on that, so I think we're both excited to see some candidates stepping up to the plate.
Yeah, now we're just hopeful that they're quality candidates, but it's on them to prove that. So let's find out.
Yeah,
all right, crossed. Next. Chris, Senate District 19. I know that's right in your backyard, and you've had some frustrations about our inability to win that district and recruit good candidates this time around. It looks like maybe people are starting to settle on a candidate in 19.
Yes, I've been around the district the last couple of days. Hillary Kurzawa is circulating petitions. She's a recently appointed Frankfort Township trustee, ran for county board and village trustee previously. She's running.
Okay. We'll keep an eye on it. Obviously, that's a district that could be in play with a good candidate and a good campaign. So we're certainly going to watch it closely. House District 76 has become bit of a cluster. We'll talk about this for a second. So Lance Yednock is retiring. We've talked about that in previous episodes. There are now 3 different Republicans running for it. Liz Bishop, Crystal Loughran, maybe I'm saying that right, Patrick Thean. 3 candidates looking at that district on the Republican side. It could be a pickup opportunity for Republicans, but it looks like that's going to be a bloody, bloody primary. What are you guys hearing? John, you're muted, buddy.
That primary is going to be super interesting to watch. You got 2 conservative candidates, and Liz Bishop runs a more establishment lane. So if both conservative candidates make the ballot, I think Liv's going to have an opening, and we'll just have to kind of wait and see.
And from what I hear, the grassroots in that area, especially LaSalle County, really, really don't like Liz Bishop. But they've got their own fight because they've got their candidate in Patrick Thean. Other conservative groups have decided to get involved, and they're running this Crystal Loughran. And again, I might be saying that wrong. So it looks like this thing is going to be a race to watch, and we'll probably have plenty of updates between now and March on this race. All right, keep moving along here. We're chugging along. Looks like Phil Nagel is going to try yet again to take out Patrick Joyce in Senate District 40. Chris is going to tell us that's a fool's errand, right?
It's a fool's errand. He's also behind the person primary, Jackie Haas, because he thinks taking Jackie Haas out might win him the election. I don't know. I guess that's what he thinks. I think Patrick Joyce might be a fool's errand, but that Piatone Airport is an issue, so we'll see if something happens out of there.
We've talked about the district is just D1. It's just Joyce makes it a little bit harder to win it, but we'll see. We'll see who comes out of that race. It's again another race we'll watch. We'll keep you guys updated. Next, Sue Scherer in House District 96. Another candidate who's trying again is Lisa Smith, trying to take out Sue Scherer. Lisa Smith is the Democrat there. And I don't know, are any of us too worried about Sue Scherer in that race in 96? I got that flipped. Hold on. Sorry.
Yeah,
let me get that right.
Dem.
Lisa Smith's the Republican. Sue Scherer's the Democrat. I'm trying to do all these updates too fast here. But Sue Scherer, it's a D6 district. Smith wasn't able to pull it off last time. Are we hearing that maybe there's going to be a better chance with the same candidate, or are you guys not hearing much about 96?
I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. It could, presidential is going to change the dynamic there, and certain parts of the district, it helps the Republican, but if Trump's the nominee, but in certain parts, it probably hurts. So it could end up being a wash, but we'll see how it plays out.
This is the challenge of trying to do so many updates in just a few minutes, so you're getting all the details right. All right, second to last one here. The first candidate to emerge for Senate District 37. Remember, we've talked about that a couple times here the last few weeks. Win Stoller is not running for re-election. We thought a few different candidates who might look at it, and none of them have. The first candidate has announced for it a Dixon City Council member, Chris Bishop, who's a younger guy who seemed to have been very active in the city of Dixon, and now it looks like he's thrown his hat in the ring for the Senate. It's very early, very fresh, but anyone hearing anything about that district?
I've heard that he's got, he's pretty popular and will have a lot of support in that race. But I would also be shocked if somebody from the Peoria area doesn't get involved or at least jump into that race. That's basically Peoria's Republican state Senate seat. So, I'd be shocked if somebody from that region doesn't get in.
Okay. Last one, another rematch. Looks like Linda Robertson's going to try yet again against Dan Ugaste in House District 65. It's a pretty solid Republican district. Ugaste did. The district looks like it's more like R12. He won by 8, so he did underperform a little bit in that race. But I don't know enough that someone could come in and pick up 8 or 9 more points and pull that off. But Linda Robertson's going to come back at it yet again. So Ugaste is going to have a little bit of a race on his hands. Any commentary on that?
He will probably lose once again.
What's that?
He's probably going to lose again. They redrew Ugaste's district to include much more conservative portions like Campton Hills of Kane County. It's going to be an uphill battle for her.
Yeah. All right. And there's a few other candidates, actually a bunch of other candidates who have announced that we've either already talked about in the past that they were going to run. Now they've announced. We only got an hour plus on this thing, so I don't want to spend too much time. Other candidates who have announced in D20 districts, R15 districts, it's just not worth wasting our viewers' time talking about those races just yet. So we're going to hold off on those updates. I want people to come to this for the news, not, hey, Joe Schmo that you'll never hear about again is running. We're going to lose viewers if that's the kind of thing we do. All right, we did it. We're a little over, but we got through all of it. Let's do some closing thoughts. Anybody have closing thoughts on politics? And then I know some of you want to talk about your picks for the Bears this weekend, so we can talk about that. But any closing thoughts on politics in the state of Illinois as we wind this down?
It's good to see people stepping up to run, even if they're running, a few times and they lose. But I'd always rather have people run than people not run. Not even from a political strategy side of things, but just because of, I think it's good for the Republican Party and it's good for our spirit to have candidates.
Petition season is upon us, so keep getting those petitions, keep hitting the doors, the train stations, and don't get discouraged. A good day for petitions is 1 sheet, and a good day for a candidate is 2 sheets. So keep up the good work, everyone, with petitions, and get on the ballot. Or don't if I don't like you.
A good day for petitions is every day. That's what I say.
Damn right, DeRay. Amen.
Yeah, if you're not walking around with a clipboard or 5 clipboards right now, you're doing it wrong. It's petition season. Everywhere you go, somebody should be asking for or giving a signature. That's just where we're at right now in the cycle. And nobody wants to be out getting petition signatures over Thanksgiving weekend. Or, we've had to over the years for our clients. We've had to stand out on Black Friday. Remember 1 year standing outside of Best Buy at Black Friday getting petition signatures. Nobody wants to do that. Get your signatures now so that we're not all hustling at the middle and end of November trying to get you on the ballot. Go do the hard work now before it gets freezing out.
Yep.
All right. I know some of you wanted to talk Bears, Bucks. I'm a little depressed about my Bears. I'm not going to make a pick. I'm just I'll watch the game, but I'm a little depressed. But Ryan, our ops leader of the team's picking the Bucks by 2. The fact that he's picking against the Bears, I don't know what to say about that. Lane, our producer, seems like he's picking against the Bears, or is he just taking the under? Let's say he's picking against the Bears because he can't jump in and defend himself. So I'm just going to make him text me furiously right now that I'm wrong and that he'd never pick against the Bears. What are you guys thinking about where we're going to at this weekend? I know, John, you're a professional gambler of the group.
Oh yeah. I mean, the under, it's always the under. Under went 12-4 in week 1. And look, I'm actually going to bet the Bears plus 2.5. 62% of the bets are on the Bears, but the money, 90% of the money is on the Bears. That tells you that the professional bettors, they're taking the Bears plus 2.5. So I'm going to take the Bears plus 2.5.
Always bet against the public. The Bears ain't winning this game. It's Bucks money line all the way. And will the Bears ever win another game? That is to be seen, because if they don't win this week, they get the Kansas City Chiefs next week, and Lord knows they ain't winning that game. So the Bears might go 0-17 this year, and I'll laugh my way all the way to the bank. Thank you very much.
Chris, what are you waving around there?
Yeah, and thankfully, Chris,
the pen.
The public is on the Bucks.
It looks like an X-Acto knife or something. I'm like, man, you really feel strongly about this. You're waving a knife around like you're not messing around. John, you were saying something. Go ahead.
Yeah, the public is on the Bucks. The pros and the money are on the Bears this week.
Oliver, you want to show your Bears hatred?
It would be hilarious if Baker Mayfield in 2023 beat the Chicago Bears. That would just make my whole week. It'd just be great.
All I know is I had a long training last week. You guys saw I was from yet another hotel room. I purposely came home Saturday night so I could have a relaxing Sunday, watch the Bears, and I got like 5 hours off of work, and the Bears just ruined what little time I had off of work. So if they ruin my Sunday yet again, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. All right, we've put Michael to sleep, so I feel like that's a good chance to close down the episode. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I want to put a plug in for next week. We're going to be live in person. Well, not live, but we're going to be in person next week in Will County. We do this every month. We've been in Lake County. We've been in Springfield. We're going to be in Chris's region in Will County. So if you watch this, if you listen to this, and you want to have your chance to come out, meet some of our people, maybe give us a join up and join us in teasing DeRay for his hair, or Chris for his crazy political views, or Oliver for her horrible sports teams choices. Come on out. You can watch the recording as it happens. You can take part in the networking that happens. We've got a special guest, the county board chair from Will County, and we've got a really interesting story that we have teased over and over that finally we're going to talk about next week, about how the heck the Democrats have a majority on the county board, and yet the Republicans somehow ended up with the county board chairman's position. It's a crazy story. You absolutely don't want to miss next week when we talk about it. So come join us live. You can email us or contact us. We'll get you information, but don't miss next week. We got some great stories to tell. For my political team, let's go backwards here. So Michael, Matt, John, Chris, Abby, I'm Colin Corbett. Thanks to our producer, Lane Davis. Thank you to all our loyal watchers and listeners. I get text messages, emails every week with people giving us thoughts, sharing information, telling us how to properly pronounce people's names. Thank you. That's awesome. We will catch you next week. Make sure you subscribe and like, and we'll talk next week.